started. So welcome back everybody to STC Day 2. This is the third panel, the graphic designers panel. I'm so pumped for this panel. So my name is Maddie Garza. I'm the president of the EMU Public Relations Student Society of America, Eleanor Wright chapter, super long name, PRSSA. And I want to thank you all for attending our event, even though it's kind of weird circumstances, but we are going to have some great speakers, so I'm glad you're here. I want to give a quick shout out to Ann Arbor Spark for sponsoring our event this week. So thank you so much for that. And so tonight we have three really impressive speakers for you guys tonight. And this is Athena Aquino, and she works for Cravings by Chrissy Teigen, and Audrey Beal, who works at Instagram, and Jason Beal, who works at Hulu. So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys introduce yourself. Just give me a quick bio about you. Who you are, where you went to school, what you do now, where you're located, all that good stuff. So go ahead and introduce yourselves. Jason, you want to start us off?
Sure. My name is Jason Beal. I am located here in Los Angeles. I went to school at Ringling College of Art and Design and got a degree in motion graphics. My current position is at Hulu as a motion design artist, and that is a full-time role. And then what else here? Oh, anything else you want to say? I'm an animator. I love to cook and I love to hike.
Okay, I guess I'll start afterwards. Okay, hi everyone. My name's Audrey. I also went to Ringling College of Art and Design. I studied motion graphics, but currently I'm at Instagram and I'm a visual designer and illustrator for their team. Previously, I was at Snapchat, and something fun. I like eating Jason's cooking. So,
Audrey and I are married.
Hello.
Just so if you didn't notice, they had the same background.
And we got the same last name, so.
That is
true. Technically working from home.
All right, awesome. Well, hi everyone. I'm Athena Aquino. So if you want to know, I'm related to them. I'm their sister, and I'm currently a brand designer at Cravings by Chrissy Teigen. So I work a lot on their brand vision, execution through their website, social, and packaging. I love, designing and creating for the community. So I focus a lot on creating like inclusive and empathetic designs, especially when I'm designing for clients. I'm based in Pasadena, California, which is like a county off of Los Angeles, so very nearby the area as well. And I'm currently attending, not Ringling, but Art Center College of Design, which is located in Pasadena. Some fun facts about me is I love tending my plants, dancing, as you saw earlier, and eating and consuming all things sweet.
Thank you. Very nice. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with the first question. We're just going to ask 45 minutes of panel questions, and then we're going to open up to the students, and they're going to put questions in the chat. So go ahead, attendees. Any questions you have throughout this panel, just go ahead and throw them in the chat, and we'll get to them at the end when we have 15 minutes to answer those questions. So we'll get started. So the first question is, so each of you work in the design industry. What is your specific area of knowledge or expertise? So whoever wants to start with that can go ahead.
Jason.
Sure. My area of expertise is motion graphics and motion artists. So that's animation. And where I've fallen into over the course of maybe 5 or so years is specifically in toolkitting and file optimization. So a lot of times what I will do is come on, well, I guess I should start with the type of work I do. A lot of network, a lot of broadcast graphics. So when I was early on, I worked on Super Bowl graphics for Super Bowl 50 back in, was that 2017, 2016? And so in a job like that, my role would be coming on and helping to figure out how do we systemize these graphics, right? We've had a great designer, great animators come in and sort of make samples of what everything should look like. And it's a question of, well, we need thousands of versions of these graphics that are all customized. And so I use After Effects to help build tools in ways to automate it and optimize it. for other artists to come in and create creative pieces, or to just be able to iterate on all of that. So I would say that's my area of expertise and focus. However, I also do just a ton of just general freelance animation, but I found that niche of being able to help build what we call toolkits in animation is a nice area that not a lot of people are in. So there's a lot of opportunity there.
So I specialize in art direction. I work pretty collaboratively with teams of animators, designers, and strategists. I'll typically be at the beginning stages of a campaign in like the concepting phase. And I work with a lot of brands to kind of define their brand voice through social media campaigns. But yeah.
Yes. So I guess for what I would say my area of expertise is that I focus as being a brand designer, specifically on like digital interfaces, so such as UI, UX, and motion. So a lot of the like previous work I've done, I worked at a design agency in Hollywood called Troika. So they work a lot on establishing brands, you know, any brand, you know, like Nike or Apple or Hulu, like a brand to establish like their typography, their colors, and then their photography style. There's a ton of assets that come into developing a brand to make it recognizable, either on a digital or physical space. So that's a lot of the work that I love doing. And yeah, currently right now, I'm working as a brand designer on creating like social assets with teams to help basically communicate to an audience who is this brand that they're representing and what do they stand for, and why should, you know, the audience care about it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I think sometimes when we think of graphic design, we're picturing somebody just making designs and that's it, and they're just like an artist. But you guys have to do social, you have to do video, and you have to like think collaboratively. So I think there's a wide range of skill sets here tonight. So I think it's really nice to get some different aspects of graphic design.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that.
Yeah.
Just because like, I feel like people think graphic design, they think of like, oh, a logo, and that's kind of like it, but it's so much more expansive.
It's so much more.
There's no world where you're doing one thing ever. It's always multifaceted.
Yeah, and you're kind of in charge of the company's voice and their branding and that kind of stuff. So I think it's a very important job. So you guys, for the second question, so what is the difference between working as a freelance designer and being a company employee designer? Because I know, Athena, you're freelance right now. And then Audrey and Jason, I believe you're both company designers, or also
It is constantly fluid and changing all the time. We
want to explain that for us all?
Yeah. You know, well, the answer is there's a huge difference between them, and there's big pros and cons in both directions. And I guess I'd probably start off with the fact from my experience is most people assume that being employed is preferable to being freelance. And I will dispel that just right off the bat. They are equal, and depending on what you want, one is going to be better than the other. There are a lot of pros to being a freelance, and one of them is just pay. You will get paid significantly more as a freelancer. Just off the bat, expect 2 to 5 times what you'll ever make on a salary as a freelancer. But that comes with the fact that you need to be an entrepreneur. You are in business for yourself. You have to do your own taxes. You got to have your own LLC. You got to find your own work. You know, it's a lot of work to do that. But there's a lot of benefits: better pay and you know, just the freedom to have as much time off as you want, and to take jobs you want and not take jobs, and you don't get stuck into the, you know, the political messiness of working full time somewhere. The cons are you're not getting paid if you're not working, and you need to find work. And so that can be hard starting off, you know, to find consistent work. You know, pros of an employment, I guess, it's probably more widely understood, is that you're employed. So, you know, it's once you're in, it's hard for anyone to push you out. You have a constant paycheck, you know, so there's a lot of pros there as well. And you don't have to be an entrepreneur. You know, if you're someone who doesn't like that just constant stress of where's my next job going to be, then that's, you know, a very good place to be, because you're not going to have that.
Yeah, I would say definitely like working as a freelancer. That's what I did. So after I graduated from college, I went out in LA and I became full-time freelance, going to different studios, hopping and jumping at lots of different agencies, and working on different projects. And for me, I really love that because I had an opportunity to just like experience a lot of different team dynamics, because like every team, every project, every studio, they're all structured a little bit differently. And so I thought that that was a really neat experience to have a handful of different art directors and working with different strategists, because everyone has a different way to solve a creative problem. But yeah, the two worlds are very, very vastly different. And I would say that if you're like an artist or visual designer or anybody, like it all just needs to fit your work-life balance, because some people, they're like perfect for freelance, but other people, they're perfect for like full-time employment. And you just kind of have to, you know, like try it before you buy it. And you won't know till you intern somewhere or see what that's like, because it's always so different. But yeah.
Yeah, it's good to move around. Good to, I was just thinking, like, if you've been somewhere for 2 years, probably a good idea to, especially if you haven't been to a lot of places, don't settle into one place for very long, because you're going to find just such massive differences between, you know, company cultures and teams and people and what it's like. And definitely try to move around, get some experience, and find out what you like.
Yeah, Athena, so what can you describe what it's like to work as a freelance designer right now? What does your life balance look like? What's your day?
Of course. Well, I wanted to like kind of explain like what it is to be like a freelance versus a company employee. And I would think of like freelance as basically like, you know, as a designer, you're technically an artist, right? You're creating, designing content for people, and they will use it in whatever means they want to. But to be a freelance is basically like getting commissions, and you're like getting like, hey, you want to be a part of this project. Like, is there, you know, do you have time to fit it in? And if you like the project and you see you're fit in it and you can do the work for it, you can sign up for it. And I think that's just gives so much more flexibility to basically choose the projects you want to be a part of, choose how long you want to be a part of the project, because your schedule is always changing as a freelancer. A lot of companies can ask you for, you know, different work at different times of the year, and you have that ability. Especially now during COVID, I found there to be a lot of opportunities where I could jump in between, like Jason was saying, between different clients, different companies, and actually see what I enjoy doing and specialize in, versus being a company employee where you're basically kind of set under what that, you know, creative director or boss kind of schedules you to do or wants you to do. So there's a lot less freedom on choosing the projects you want to engage in, but there's definitely a pro to having being under a company, because you get consistent work. You get paid at a very consistent rate, usually like bi-weekly or monthly, depending what you worked out with the company. And, you know, it's just a lot. Like, you can also get benefits. If you're an international student, you could possibly get like a visa. You can also get insurance from the company. So there's a lot of, you know, benefits that comes with it. And a freelance, like Jason said, you have to basically figure that all on your own. But to compensate for that, you do make more as a freelancer. Yeah.
I think there's an in-between one we should probably mention as well, because we talked about, you know, pure freelance, finding commissions, finding work. We talked about employment. There's also a middle ground, which is kind of called permalance. And permalance is kind of the best of both worlds if you can find that. And that's where you are a freelancer, but you have a long-term contract. So you might be a freelancer for a company for 6 months, a year, you know, maybe even 3 months, as short as that. But you have all the perks of being freelance, right? You have the better rate, you have the flexibility to take whatever time off you want. However, you also have guaranteed work for half a year or a year. And those positions do come along, especially for marketing. You know, at Hulu, I know we always have 3 or 4 freelance marketers, just for, you know, whatever reasons they can't expand the team, they can't hire someone on, but they know they need additional, just additional hands for half a year to a year, they'll bring on a contract, marketer. And that's a great place to be. And also those jobs a lot of times can transition into full-time work as well. So you get to kind of get in there, try it out, see what it's like. And a lot of times you have an option to convert if you want to, which is what I did. I mean, I was a freelancer at Hulu for on and off over a year and a half between multiple contracts. And then I actually just a couple, I guess 4 weeks ago now, transitioned to full time. So there is permalance as well. So you can kind of find a little bit of an in-between, especially at larger companies.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very nice. Yeah. Thank you for explaining that. I think that gives some good insight into the kind of career options you can have in graphic design. So I'm going to head on to the next question here. So what are some of your past jobs and what are some of the most important things you learned from them? Skills or lessons, anything at all?
That's a good question. I think for me, it's very easy to pour 100% of yourself in a campaign project. There's a lot of late nights and the grind can be very real. And one of the things that I've learned from just like doing past jobs is work-life balance. You got to remember to take breaks, spend time with your family or do an art project that rejuvenates yourself. And you'll definitely come back, reset, realign to be able to tackle the next project. But yeah, definitely taking breaks.
Jason, do you want to speak a little bit on your past jobs and what you learned from them?
Yeah. I mean, I think it helped that, right? Like I in college kind of figured out, I knew I wanted to be an animator and was able to get a degree that was pretty focused in that. So I think that helped a little bit in terms of, I wasn't exploring, man, do I want to do, web design or do I want to do interact? I kind of knew about where I wanted to be. And I was able to do a pair of internships over my last 2 years of college, one at Showtime and one with a marketing agency in LA called Troika. And through those, I was able to go, okay, I like this sort of, it's internet, it's the streaming giants today, but 5 years ago it was for television. It was television, broadcast, motion graphics, and commercial graphics. And now that's, Netflix, Hulu, Apple, Amazon. But so, I think it's important. There's just it's such a broad, vast field of what you can do every day. It's you kind of need to find a focus. And so that helps, right? And so just getting some experience, getting out there, trying something, not worrying about you're not, whatever you're doing, the first job, it's not going to be the job you do for 10 years. You're going to do it for a year or 6 months or 2 years, and you're going to do something else. And so it's that trial and error of figuring that out. And I think that's probably the biggest thing I've learned is try to jump around and find out where your niche is. Because the more places you go, you're going to learn more about what the different roles are and how they differ, for television or for tech companies or web. I think the most important thing I probably learned though was you need to make friends and you need to network. I mean, I feel like 99% of this job is not actually creative skill or talent. I think that's sort of a baseline entry level ticket. Like you got to be good and creative, but what really makes you advance is being a good people person, just being able to be casual, to talk, to be someone who's enjoyable to work with. We all work really hard, late nights. Nobody wants to work with someone who's just not pleasant to be around. And that will get you much farther than being the person in the room every day. Nobody wants to work with, no one wants to work with an asshole. It's like, that's what matters is that you want to be with. And so it's that, it's kind of, I don't want to call it networking because I feel like that gets into this weird cliche of networking events. It's not, it's just making an impact, coming through, doing a good job, and the people around you are going to remember that, and they're going to go elsewhere and they're going to bring you with them. So.
Yeah, just like emphasizing, don't be an asshole. The industry is really small and people talk. And if you're not very pleasant to work with, doesn't matter if you're the most talented, creative or strategist around, no one wants to work with that. And so word does get around, people be chatting on LinkedIn. So just always be kind and always be just good to your good to your fellow team members, you know? Always a good advice. And on that note, like jumping off what Jason said, 2 words, LinkedIn. Well, I guess it's just 1 word, but anyways, a lot of like producers, project managers, team leads, they connect on there. They're always chatting, and just keep sending those emails and ping people. Don't ever get discouraged if someone doesn't answer you. I promise you, they get like how many hundreds of emails a day. Like me, it's almost better to like contact me 10 times and then I'll answer the 10. I'm very bad at checking my email. That's something that I was bad at when I was younger, and I'm still bad at it right now, but I'm a little bit better at it. But yes, keep emailing those producers and those team leads.
Yeah, I remember this when we were graduating, because our school was in Sarasota, Florida. There's not a whole lot of, design and animation jobs in Sarasota, Florida. So we had to, look at New York and LA and different cities. And, it was always terrifying emailing people, because you'd send an email, send this long, ridiculous paragraph of an email, and then you wouldn't hear anything back. And you'd be like, oh no, I wasn't good enough, or what happened? And it was just like, no, you need to email them like a dozen times, because they're busy and they're not seeing your email, or they didn't read it. And also forget the biography paragraph, and just 2 lines, quick and simple.
Keep your email
Nobody
small.
has time for that.
Very small.
Yeah, it's funny. But also just, you never know who you're going to make an impression with, and you never know that email, you might not hear back from that person for a year or 2, and out of nowhere you're going to hear back. A perfect example of just being an enjoyable person to be around, and how you never know who you're impacting. I mean, I was at Troika for an internship for like a few months, and then I ended up coming back there freelance for about a year or so. And there was a person that I interacted with for 1 day. It was his last day. And I talked with him they were having like a company little like lunch party, whatever, going away party for him. And I interacted with him for I had a 20-minute conversation. Had never worked with him before. We talked, it was fine. I didn't really remember or think about it too much, but yeah, just had one conversation. 2 years later, I get an email from him, and he's a creative director at Apple, and says, hey, we've got this role. You should come on board and work with them. And so I ended up going to work as a product designer at Apple for a year and a half with them, because of a 20-minute conversation that I didn't think even mattered, but something that I had said stuck in his head. He remembered it, and years later he called back. So you never know who you're talking to, where they're going to go. Always make a good impression, and just try to be friendly and amiable. It's really, really important.
I think that's really good advice. Athena, did you have anything you want to say about some important things you've learned from your past jobs or experiences?
I mean, they kind of said everything I wanted to say. I mean, I just want to emphasize, I guess the key point we're all making is collaboration. Be connected with the people that you work with. Be helpful, be active when you're talking to them. Don't leave people in red. Don't ignore an email more than like a day or 2, because the industry is moving so fast, and people are always going to be needing help. So if you come and you help other people, they'll remember that. It will resonate with them, and they'll bring it on to the next job that they work, and they'll be like, hey, I remember that person. They were super pleasant to work with, and I want to hit them up again. And that's how a lot of us found our jobs, and it's been working really, really well ever since. But yeah, just collaboration is key to a lot of the jobs that I've worked at. Just working with others, giving everyone the chance to voice out their opinions, and coming up with a consensus of what do we want to work on, what do we want to focus on, and not overshadowing or undermining people will really pull out the best projects, best designs, and just the best experience you can get in the design field.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you very much for answering that. I think that was very insightful. And I think it just speaks to, even no matter what field you're in, even if it's creative and you need to have a certain skill set, that being a good person and having really good people skills just takes you very far.
Yes.
So we're going to head on to the next question here. So what project or assignment are you most proud of or most excited about? One of your projects that's your favorite? And since this is a very visual group, I'm going to have you guys share your favorite or just a favorite or something you want to share with us so we can kind of see the work that you're doing because it's super cool and I want to see it. So whoever wants to start can go ahead and start and talk about your favorite project.
Let's start with Jason.
Okay. I was going to share, but okay.
Favorite. I mean, there's just, you work on so many things over the years. It's not, I make it sound like we graduated, Audrey and I graduated 5 years ago now? It's not that long ago, but you know, my favorite things are always, I kind of, before I got into motion graphics in high school and all, I was into theater and like just live stuff. And so I always love whenever we do motion graphics for live events. So I included a couple things. I guess we'll open one up here. I'll share my screen. Host disabled attendees from sharing screen sharing. I don't think I can share my screen. But do you want to try to share, Maddie?
I think I have mine. I think I have all your work open.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Which one was that?
What's a good live event? You know, one of the ones.
Actually, I just gave you got permissions. You can do it now.
Oh, great. Okay.
Do you have it?
Let's see. Share screen. I guess we'll just do. It's gonna hold on. It's gonna get crazy. You're gonna see yourself in a tunnel for a second here. All right.
Perfect.
This is ladies and gentlemen. Oh
turn the volume down. This one's an oldie and it's a little cliche, but I just love it because it's a giant theater. This was CMT Awards, I think 2016 or 17. And this was just someone who I got in contact with, and he does all of the motion graphics for he's just like a production guy. And he reached out, he needed some help and he needed someone to do the screen content in the background of this. It was a live broadcast television thing. It was the first live show I'd done. And I had to develop like all of the graphics for this stadium. The funny thing is I had like, I think it was like 4 nights to do it. And I was working full time at the time. And so it was just an overnight job, but I don't know. I just love seeing it live on the stage. I didn't get to be here live for this event, but they sent me videos of it. And also I kind of got to see what it looks like. But so I don't know. It's really cool when you see like a live venue and you see your work giant everywhere. What that looks like today at Hulu is I do a lot of these digital out of homes. This is one that was just the other day on a hotel here in LA. It's this huge, but these screens are like, they're like 8 stories tall. I think it's massive. And so you just, you know, working at scale is really cool. You just get to see it really big. So I always enjoy the physical thing. I'm trying to think of something else that might be, this is neat. This was called this is the Nike Flash Town. So Nike launches new shoes and such all the time. And they hire this workout all the time. And this is more of an art installation piece where there's this huge LED chandelier. You can kind of see them building here. And I work with a handful of people to kind of figure out what was going to be on these LEDs. It is a big like 3-dimensional screen. And the installation was pretty epic, and it was in New York. And this was really fun too. It's always fun when you kind of can work on a screen, but its ultimate destination is something else. So these are some of my favorite pieces.
Yeah, that is so cool. It's amazing what companies you've worked for and like how big these projects are, and you get to see your work like on a stage or a building. So that is amazing.
I guess I should also note, like none of these things, you're not really doing any of these yourself. It's always a big team. You know, most of these I'm working with an agency or a studio, and you're one of, you know, maybe 5 different artists and many producers and just, you know, it's a team effort always.
Yes. Well, we'll just say that Jason did it because why not?
Why not?
Audrey or Athena, did you want to share one of your favorite projects?
I'll share. I can't. It says disabled screen sharing. Can I share now?
Jason, do you mind making her the host?
Oh, okay, yeah.
I just realized I did that.
What the heck?
The powers I don't usually wield. Only host.
Also,
all
are we supposed to answer the questions in the panel? Like, are we answering them in a
We're gonna
later?
save those for the end. We have the last 15 minutes to answer the student questions.
How do I share?
Cool.
Host?
Participants, and then hover over Athena's name, click the drop down, and make host.
I see.
I'm so sorry. I should have done this a different way.
That's all.
Athena's the host. Take it away.
Okay, cool. Let's see if this works. Okay, I just pulled up like one of the most recent projects I worked on that I actually uploaded. So this is like a year or two ago, or no, this was like a year or two ago, yeah. A year, 2019. So this is for a project for a company called Women of Wearables. So it's basically organization of women that are in tech, either working in AR, VR, experience design, product design, just like anything to help with or assisting women that are in technology. So basically, I worked on their rebrand by creating their logo, type, color, photo treatment, and then just their experience of their activation of an in-space, physical space in an exhibition and in an office space. So there's a lot. But this was really cool. So I branded the logo with creating basically a lot of the elements inspired by the shape of the W, but also their work as well. So I chose like wavy figures to represent the fabric, textiles that they're working on in technology, quotation mark in the W to represent community, and just a little sparkle to represent the innovation that these women are working on in the field that is mostly male dominated, right? And it was really awesome to explore the potential of this brand. So we chose a very diverse but strong color palette because we believe that it represented what these women were standing for on being on the forefront of tech for women. And a lot of times in the design process, you have to come up with research and development. You cannot go through a design project without research. And it's just figuring out who your audience is, what do they want, what do they need, and what do you offer as a designer or a brand team that they can use and own this brand for themselves. So we describe them as diverse, empowering, supportive, confident, accessible, and innovative. We broke it up into a brand steering wheel where we just kind of, dug deeper into who they are, what do they embody, and just descriptive words that can really encapsulate who or what they're representing. Lots of inspiration boards obviously come up in the progress. These are just some of the images that we were choosing. And then here's the exploration of color, the color breakdown, what would be representing them, and the orange was on the forefront, along with the accent colors of the blue, red, and purple, and the gradients as well as part of the brand theme. Typography, which is super underrated, but so important to communicate. A lot of companies, if you don't really recognize, are very distinctive for the type they choose, even though you don't really think about it. It's a very subliminal thing, but it's so important when you're developing a brand identity. So if you think of like Nike, right? Like you always think of those like iconic, like swooshed, like little, like bold, all caps, super condensed like type. And that just represents what Nike is, and like that speed and that aggression and the kind of like sports mode of thinking when you visualize that type. So this is what we were choosing or thinking of when we were developing the font for this. And we chose Canela, kind of similar to the photography, a very delicate but very empowering font to represent these women. Let's scroll through this. These are just some exhibition mock-ups. If they lived in a physical space and there was a whole event for these women, hosting them in a town hall, and motion, as well as their web and their app. So how you would even explore who they are and what they're working on, the products they're creating. I don't know if you could see a lot of this, but it was super fun to work on, and it's definitely just an awesome thing to consider that like the design that we make is influencing people right now and helping and assisting and voicing them, in this world. Yeah, it's one of the projects I worked on.
Yeah, very cool. I think it's really in depth, all the things that you guys have to do. Audrey, did you want to go ahead and share your project, or did you want me to share that?
Oh yeah, I'll share. Athena, why don't you make me host?
How do I do that?
Game.
I
We're
forgot.
all hosts.
Preferences?
It's in panelists.
Panelists, and then hover over her name and then click, actually hover over my name, click make host, and I'll just give her sharing permissions. And then
Why didn't you do this earlier?
I
Okay, I made it you.
there we go.
It should
Okay.
be you.
All right, you guys should have permission now.
Ooh, am I the host now?
Share away.
Okay. Let's check this out. Just hold on one moment. Let's see.
Got a bunch of good questions stacking up in chat too.
Yeah, I think we might start going to those questions after this.
Yeah.
I don't think it worked, y'all. Okay, wait a second.
It wouldn't be a Zoom call if everything worked.
I just got a new machine and it's not letting me share. I have to like go into my preference. This will be a little bit longer and complicated. Do we want to just?
I think I have it here. Let me.
Oh yeah.
We're gonna share.
Yeah, we'll just go with you being the. Thank you for doing that.
Yes, no problem.
So I can't currently show some of the current projects I'm working on. So we're just going on my portfolio, my audreybeal.com site, and we're just gonna go through some projects that I really like. That sounds like a good idea, right? Okay. So this was a really fun campaign that I worked with. It was during my time at Snapchat, and it was when Snapchat got a rebuild for Android. And this was a super fun project because of some of the things that Athena touched on was research. And that was a lot of the first steps that we did when we did this whole project, because Snapchat has never really truly worked on Android the way that it was supposed to be. And if some people know or care, Snapchat was always built for iPhone. So this was kind of a big deal that it was getting rebuilt for the Android platform. And it was kind of a challenging project just because there was a lot of tension, because we had to understand our user base, and there was a lot of bad blood between our users and the Android kind of like the community. So it was quite challenging to find something playful but unique and something that we could really lean into. And so I know that the Snapchat brand is very playful. It's like very just whimsical and fun. And we like our whole team, like we created this idea that the ghost from Snapchat and the robot from Android, like they were best friends and they were like Snapchat buddies. You can just turn down the volume on that if you play it. But yeah, so we did all these like little skits and vignettes of our two little characters, because they're little quirky, little derpy little mascot characters. And we just made them be best friends. And we did all these different short skits of them doing a lot of cute, adorable things. So this one, they're playing with the camera wheel, and the little bug droid is like spinning it and like putting it on like the ghost's head. And we did a handful of these. And I think if you keep scrolling down, I'm not sure if I like included any more of these things. Yeah, I did the design for the web portal, so snapchat.com, and all the different campaign elements. So there's like a lot of deliverables when it came to this thing. Like there was an Instagram takeover, there was a Twitter takeover, we bought a hashtag, like the whole 9 yards, and it was just a really, really fun project to just be a part of. But yeah, really enjoyed that one. And it was great because I felt like it was a big opportunity to just like lead the whole thing. So I was like a big just moving force, making that project be real. But yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Alrighty, well, it is getting close to those 15 minutes and we do have a lot of questions in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and start asking a few of those. So let's see, we'll start with Becca. It says, what differences and challenges do you think students who don't come from an art school face when starting out post-graduation compared to those who do?
That's a great question. I would say at art school, there is a huge emphasis to do internships, to go to these agencies and these companies. And I don't see a lot of like Greek schools or different a classic university kind of pushing that. So I would say that like as much as possible, if you've got like summers that are, or winter breaks that are clear of schedule, try to contact those studios.
Yeah, I was going to say it's maybe a little biased just because I think all three of us went to an art school, but I think the thing that you get from the specificity of being in that is that you have a little bit of a leg up, that you kind of learn about the specific places to work, right? A lot of the companies, if it's not Nike and Netflix, right? It's these small studios, and I think that's the hardest thing, is to learn or just try to know who to call, right? There's hundreds and hundreds of agencies, but you've never heard of them before. And so I think that's the challenge. And it's probably one of the harder things if you're coming from the outside in, is just learning about that, and finding anyone who has any information about that is just sort of like a little wedge in the door to get your foot in and start learning about, oh, I should call this company. That's the hardest thing, right? It's just to find the company to call about an internship or a job.
Yeah, great. So the next question is, what would you say has been the most challenging experience or work being a graphic designer? Also, is there any advice you would give someone who doesn't exactly know what career path they want to choose?
That's a great question. I would say some of the most challenging things is learning to say no. It's very easy to say yes to everything. And something that took me quite a long time to like get used to is just being able to properly schedule out your time and be realistic with timelines and deadlines. And I know like when I write a project, I always want to be a people pleaser. I always want to turn it in even earlier than expected or under budget. But something that I myself am always struggling with and like always learning from is setting kind of like a standard of like being on the same playing field with your client, and just being like, this is what we can do with the allotted budget and the allotted time, and just level setting. So that's one of the challenges that's just always difficult. It's just like being able to articulate and communicate with the client, because it's a lot of just like not just doing art, it's a lot of like being able to articulate and talk to your team members.
Yeah, communication and expectations, whether it's a client or it's your employer, whoever it is, it just seems like this inevitable, never-ending, just like quagmire of an issue of just the communication and the expectation. As soon as it gets into the creative world, whether that's visual creativity or strategy or whatever, it's just you're inevitably communicating with people who are not creative, they do not understand, and the expectations can just be all over the place. And so it can just get really, that's the hardest thing, is just making sure everyone understands what's happening, you know?
And for the second part of the question of like giving advice for like, if you don't know what career path to choose, you know, you don't know until you try a little bit of it. That's why like I love when I was in college, I did a ton of internships. And it really helped me kind of like define like, oh, I didn't like that. Let me try this studio, or let me try something that's a little bit more design oriented than animation oriented. So yeah, I would say definitely pushing to find an internship at a studio, because you'll get a lot of just like groundwork figuring out if you like this type of industry or not.
Yeah, you got to approach it with a very sort of agile attitude. You know, don't come at it from this mindset of I need to find the place that I'm going to be. Nothing is forever, especially in this industry. So I would say get comfortable with the idea that you're going to have a different job every year, or maybe more frequently if you're a freelancer. And that's a really, really good thing, because you're inevitably going to get into a place you don't like or a bad situation, but you know what? You're going to move and you're going to go somewhere else. And so it's just, nothing is forever. And you know, if you approach it with that sense of there's always another job, and believe me, there is always another job. There's so many jobs in this industry. You'll be fine. Jump around and just try stuff out. Don't be afraid to, you know, don't be afraid to jump around a bit.
Alrighty, the next question is, what is your most memorable internship experience?
Ooh, that's a really great question. Okay, I think my first internship, I interned at an indie game, a very, very small indie game company, and they were developing a Nintendo Switch game. And that was just so memorable just because like I was able to dive into storytelling and dive into like different ways to like develop like a whole video game world, but also think about the marketing and like how you could really push the limits of like what video game marketing is. So that was a really, really fun internship, and it was with an indie game studio. So very small team. We're talking like, when I say small team, we're talking like 3 people max sort of thing. So that was just like so fun and just so different than like what I do right now.
Athena, do you want to talk about your most memorable internship experience?
Yeah. So I guess one of it was my first internship experience, and it was at a company that Jason worked at too. And it's called Troika. And that was definitely just like a big revelation on what the design industry, or even the marketing industry has, and how much work goes into initiating all of these projects. My first day when I walked into work, they were like, we need you. We are pitching 3 proposals for a whole design deck. We need you to design all of these social assets and all of like these iPhone mock-ups, and you have about the end of the day to do this. They didn't obviously force it on me. I wanted to because it was my first day and I was very excited, but it is a grind. How, especially here in the LA area, the industry is always constantly evolving, always moving, new projects, new gigs, and you really just seeing that in real life for the first time just shows like, you know, how fast-paced, you know, people are. This is a lifestyle for people to constantly work on these rebrands for ESPN, MLB, like NBA, and you just, it's very admirable, honestly. And I learned a lot from seeing a lot of how my creative directors, you know, held a team, which is so important because there is definitely a burnout that comes to running a team. And I saw that firsthand, and it's really important to stay motivated and stay inspired and just kind of know why you are doing this and why you want to work in this industry, and you'll be able to pull through. Yeah.
Nice. Jason, did you want to touch on that one, or did you want to head to the next one?
Let's head to the next. We're running out of time. There's some really good.
I know.
I'll also say, I don't know how this works on your end, but I'm happy to stay a little bit longer just to get through some of these, if that's, because there's some good ones in here that might take a bit to answer.
Okay. Yeah, our attendees, if you got to go at 7, you can go at 7, but we might go a little bit over to answer some of these questions, if that's fine with Athena and Audrey.
Yeah, I'm down.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, then we'll go on to the next one. So it says, if you're freelancing, how do you figure out what rates to charge? Are there certain resources or books you'd recommend for people just getting started out in that region? Also, in general, what are the top tips you would give for someone just starting out?
This is 100% a Jason question. Take it away, Jason. I know you know this.
It's kind of ironic that I'm not freelance right now, but I'll just hold this up. This is a free resource online. If you look up, I think it's, hold on, where is it? Where is it at? It's the focus. I'll just say it's called the Creative Group Tag. They have a website. It's called, here it is, creativegroup. Can you read that? Creativegroup.com. Yeah, Audrey, put it in chat for me. This place is probably the best benchmark nationwide. They cover US and Canada. They cover, I mean, every imaginable position from you know, in the PR realm of strategy and writing and all of that kind of thing, to designers, to, here it is. to designers to motion graphics, really, really specific roles. It's for one, it's great because you can learn a lot of what a lot of role names are called, because it's hard to know what the different roles are if you've never worked somewhere before. But also they have really great breakdowns of, it's every year they update it, it's salaries, and it's salaries broken out by county nationwide. So you'll be able to see, you know, what does this role pay in Chicago versus Los Angeles versus San Francisco versus Dallas. And it's pretty accurate. I can say, having worked at a lot of places, it's pretty darn accurate. And it breaks it down by your experience level into 4 different percentiles of, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 of what you could expect at different rates, both salary and as a freelance rate. So that is a great place to start. I didn't find that until about a year ago. A producer sent it to me and I was like, whoa, this is awesome. But your rate, a big part of it is just, what do you do? You know, rates are hugely dependent on job role. You know, a 3D animator gets paid differently than a 2D animator. That gets paid differently than a designer, than a, you know, art director or a strategist or a writer or a voice actor. It's all over the place. So I would say it's hard to really say what you base it on, other than it just depends on your role. And, you know, find somebody who does something similar to what you do and try to get them to help you with rate guidance. If anybody's a motion graphics artist, I can help you there. But beyond that, it's hard to tell you. And it's city specific, but it's also specific to the type of work, right? If you're working in a local market and you're working as like a local ad agency, right? You're working with small businesses in your town, that is going to have a dramatically different rate than if you're working, you know, for large companies at an agency. You know, if you are working for an agency, right? Or if you're working directly for a large company like Nike or Walmart or wherever. A local market is just going to be very, very different. So it does depend kind of what you're doing. That's kind of vague, I know, but I think that pamphlet will probably be a really great help to anybody looking for information. I
think you did a great job answering that. Do you guys have anything else to add, or would you like to go on to the next one? Athena's like,
Perfect.
What you said.
All right.
I'm an entrepreneur. I love talking how to find the next job, how much to charge, and all that. I'm a little bored as an employee right now, but
I'm gonna contact you later, and you're gonna help me out. All right. So this one is for Athena specifically. It says you mentioned something about international students and freelancing. Could you corroborate on that?
Yeah. Wait. Corroborate means like go into more detail, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Betsy. Well, I personally haven't really experienced it, but I go to a school with a ton of international students who are all pursuing, you know, a job in the creative industry. And it's definitely a competitive one. I would just, you know, recommend, like we said earlier, like making those connections, you know, finding people who will represent you, because it will be so much easier for you to find a job that you know, has those protections, or not protections, but those plans to support international families or students or workers, especially right now, like during COVID, like there's probably a ton of people working all around the world at a much faster and probably easier rate. I wish I don't necessarily have any reference on links and stuff, but I do know at least for your like first three or four years, it is a lot easier for an international student when they graduate to find a job working, you know, in their area that they want to focus, like in LA or in San Francisco or in Chicago, and getting it at a company. And that's just because you're guaranteed probably more protections as you would than working freelance. Just because freelance, you know, you are technically an independent contractor and they don't necessarily classify you as a worker from that company. Yeah.
Perfect. So the next one is for all of you. It says, what tools or resources would you suggest for those interested in graphic design, but who are not confident in their abilities quite yet?
You know, it depends on, you can be decent, but not competent, right? Like you can probably be good, but you might not feel like you're good, or you just might not be very good, right? So I think that matters, right? but in terms of tools to improve, I mean, if you have an opportunity to take a design course or typography course, I mean, that's really big. If you're coming from ground zero with nothing, there are some sort of fundamentals that I think are important. And whether or not that's at your school or online, I'm probably going to blank. Audrey and Athena might have some actual resources, but there are some great stuff there's a lot of terrible information on the internet, but there are some really great reputable places to get basics of typography and design and color.
I just linked the School of Motion in chat, and that's actually taught by one of our previous professors. So yeah, the School of Motion is kind of like this amazing resource where you can like learn like motion graphics and graphic design. Really highly recommend. It's such a great resource, especially if this is something that you want to do on the side from school, and something that's kind of like maybe you want to do this over the summer or the winter break that's coming up. But yeah, and like sometimes I do like challenges for myself, where I'll just be like, I've always wanted to do a Google Doodle, and maybe it'll be something that'll be interesting. I'll like create my own brief for myself, and I'll like just go ahead and just pretend it's like a client project, but it's not, but it's just for like me and my own experimentalness. So yeah, like getting into the Adobe programs like After Effects and Premiere and Illustrator and Photoshop. Those are all bread and butter tools that that everyone in the industry works in. And I would say like it can be like very daunting to choose like which one in particular. So just like choose one and then just like do a little lesson inside that one.
I mean, I think the first one would be Photoshop, probably would be the most versatile. Probably worth noting though to remember too that Photoshop, After Effects, Illustrator, they're all tools, right? That's not knowing that tool doesn't make you creative. That just makes you know how to use the tool. And sometimes that's enough to get a job. It's just knowing how to do something in the program, whether or not it looks good. There's plenty of people who will hire you just for that. But it is important to, you need to know the tools, but then there's also the creative part, right? Like knowing the foundations of type and knowing, default of like, what's a serif, what's a sans serif, how do you, typesetting, half point, full point, just general design basics that help you iterate ideas. That's creative. That's not going to help you know how to actually do that inside of Photoshop or Illustrator. So there are two parts to that, the tools and then the design foundations.
I know those are a lot of technical tools, but
can I say something? You guys keep talking.
Sorry.
Okay, I want to just share this because I know you don't have a lot of time, but I actually made a resource document with a lot of graphic inspiration. If I could if it would be cool, do you want me to share it?
Yeah, share it.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I can share my screen, right?
Yep,
okay, cool. This is super. Okay, so I could share this in chat. I made it specifically for my school, but I am currently the graphic design rep at my at Art Center. So I basically compiled this kind of insane document. And I wonder if is it showing on your screen?
Yeah, we see it.
Okay, so basically I compiled this document that is a Google Sheets, and it basically gives you all the assets to, learn design on your own at home, either through inspiration websites, digital asset websites, or just learning a little bit more about the programs and software. So I think there's a lot of helpful links that I can drop in chat, or I could just share this document. But knowing type is super important, and it's definitely a key because that kind of distinguishes what kind of voice you create as a designer. So I would definitely recommend just exploring the free font websites. There's Adobe fonts, there's Google fonts, and then there's a ton more links to just all these font inspirations. Go on Pinterest, find some designs that you like, save it in a board and kind of look at what's the style of the fonts, what are the colors I'm liking. And that will kind of help you kind of nail in the style that you gravitate towards. This one is my favorite, and I recommend this for every person here. There is a ton of design inspo on all of these magazines that basically document designs from, all the way back into like the 1900s or 1800s, like whatever they're feeling about talking about. They wrote about it and put it into articles, and they compiled a set of information for you to just research and, get inspired. This is also kind of crazy. But if you're learning how to do like design assets, these are just kind of a little bit of a key of like, okay, like here are, some colors I could use. Like Adobe Color is a great one. I'll just show an example. But like you can go into Adobe Color and then create a color palette off of maybe a photo you own, or one of the photos you save from Pinterest, and then throw some type onto it that you found through Adobe fonts or something, and then just play around with it. And that's what I definitely encourage if you're trying to gain confidence in your design skills, is just practice. Like practice on your own personal work, practice on your own time, and use the resources that there's a ton. I'm obviously not going to share it all, but use the resources that the internet has, and just like go into Google and be like, looking for cool presentations, and like there'll probably be a website that has compiled a list of how you can potentially design your presentations if you're marketing towards a client or for another person. Okay, that's my
that is awesome. I think that's a really great resource. And it looks like in the chat everybody's demanding that they get the link. So if you want to share the links, go ahead. If you want to do it later, you can email them to me, and then we can send out an email to everybody who attended tonight, and they can get that information. So whatever's easiest for you, but we will get that to you guys. I see you in the chat, and we will get you that information.
Yes, I got you.
All right, so let's head on to the next question. So let's see. How do you guys deal with imposter syndrome?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I feel like if you're a creative, everyone goes through it. Everyone goes through a burnout. Everyone goes through imposter syndrome. Like, am I doing this? Should I deserve this? Like, am I allowed this? And it's such a tough, tricky thing, because it's all about your mindset. And like, it's always this thing where you gotta just always remind yourself that you're your own main character in your story, and everyone gets to the goal a different way. And your journey is going to be different than somebody else's journey, even if they're your friend that's sitting right next to you. And that it's going to be okay, because every artist deals with this. It's kind of like I don't think you're a creative if you don't go through imposter syndrome.
It gets better over time. It's just,
It's like building that self-confidence, that you're a badass and that you'll figure it out, because no one knows what they're doing.
No one knows what they're doing.
No one knows what they're doing.
Everyone is always figuring it out at some level.
Yeah, most definitely.
Nice. All right. Yeah. Audrey, look at you, just like dropping some wisdom on us, helping us all out here. So the next question is, so this person, they're studying marketing. What is the best way to showcase one's work, either as a designer or past marketing projects through infograph for an interview?
It's all about strategy with marketing. And I think that, the visuals really help, of course, if the project had good visuals. But, and Audrey can probably speak to this more so, it's just talking through the thinking, the purpose, and then following up with how did the actual campaign achieve those ideas that you were originally aiming to achieve?
Yeah, definitely what Jason said, because I feel like it's very easy to show me a pretty visual. Like, so anyone can make a pretty image. Like, we've got, like, with everyone's technology nowadays, it's super easy to see something pretty. What's gonna really like make me look at your portfolio is if you articulate exactly how you got to that idea. What's your thought process? What was your thinking? Why did you choose the color purple? Why did you make this swoosh like this? Like, I want to know. And I feel like that's gonna be the best way to showcase your work. And I'm like reading some of the questions, like whether it's website, PDF, or portfolio or Instagram account, all of those. Like I feel like the more places your work is, if someone's on LinkedIn or if someone's on Instagram, they're going to be able to see your work on whichever platform that they're familiar with. So I make sure that I have all of those different accounts. But yeah, like especially like say like a website, like a portfolio website, one of the things that I really like to do when like showcasing a campaign is to make sure that the mock-ups are in situ. And what that means is just like making the things in situation. If it's a takeover campaign for Twitter, it's not going to translate if you just like stick an image of like the tweet. Like you need to put it on a phone. You need to like put it contextually. So like when someone is scrolling through, they're like, oh, okay, I understand that this was like something for mobile, or maybe this was something for desktop or so and so. So I think it's really important to have those in situ mocks because they can really kind of bring life to the whole campaign and like what that whole thing was about. And your thought process. I can't emphasize being very articulate with thought process and how you got to it.
And if you're marketing, and it happened, I think following up with, did it work? This was our thought process. Did this actually work? And if it did, definitely highlight, this is what we did and why we did it. We wanted to achieve this specific goal. And then following up, if you have data, even better, if like, yeah, we were able to get this many impressions or views or whatnot, whatever the goal was, and show how that strategy followed through. If it didn't work so much, then maybe don't highlight that, but
yeah, everyone always loves little data points of like, oh, we got this much engagement on this content, or because it was such an eye-catching visual, or it was a video, it performed better on Twitter. Like you just want to like highlight those points. Yeah. And if you have data points, like definitely share it and put it in there.
Because as an interview, that's what they're trying to figure out. What value can you bring to this team by coming on? And it's not just pretty pictures. It's, can you critically think through and understand, yes, we need you to make a pretty picture, but we need you to understand why you're doing it so that you can help, the goals of whatever it is the company's trying to do. I think that's a really important tie through to communicate in an interview, is that you understand the purpose of what you're doing and therefore can think through it, be most effective.
Yeah, so I think you guys touched on the next question, which is also, what's the best way to present your portfolio? You kind of said you want a portfolio, a website, PDF, make it accessible, basically. Mm-hmm. Do you want to elaborate more on that?
It just, because you'll never know like which producer or which team lead you're going to be talking to. Sometimes that person's going to want a PDF. Sometimes that person is just going to want to have a .com. Or sometimes they're just going to be like, can I just look at your Instagram? So that's why I emphasize to just put it on all the different platforms and have a version of each, just so like you don't have to be scrambling last second to be like, oh shit, I got to make like a PDF sort of thing. You'll just already have it in the back of your pocket.
I saw someone wrote.
So, okay.
Oh, sorry. Well, okay, you go, Athena.
Oh, okay. I don't know anymore. Basically, like I do just know from my experience that your portfolio will probably only be looked at for 10 to 1 minute, 10 seconds to a minute long, for them to decide, I want to interview this person or not. So I would definitely recommend having a hero page that quickly describes or portrays who you are as a creative or a designer, just because you want to grab their attention. You want them to be interested in you. And then once you're interested, then they'll be like, okay, I'll give it a try. And then that's when you can go in depth with, your projects and your perspective and your process behind it. Make sure you have that on your website, obviously. But also just keep in notice that maybe you spend like hours and hours, days. I mean, I spent like months working on my portfolio to just recognize like this person is going to just look at this for like a minute or two, because people are busy. People have, difficult time schedules. Like how many times have we all probably opened up an Instagram like page and then just like clicked out of it in a second, or clicked on it and be like, oh, we liked it. Same impression with your portfolio. So obviously be confident, but yeah, just know that this is like the way people will interact with it. Yeah.
Yeah, jumping off from what Athena said, having that kind of like high impact moment when you get on your portfolio to be able to see if this is like someone who you're able to work with. Like say you want to work for Spotify but you don't have any type of music campaign, any sort of like anything that looks like their brand, they're probably going to click off of you. So if possible, tailor your portfolio to some of the companies and brands that you look up to, because they'll like look at your stuff. Like I remember when I was working at Snapchat, the minute someone had even a drop of yellow on their portfolio, we all stopped and we're like, wait a second, let's look at that. And it was just the most hilarious thing. That's the same case for Spotify, because Spotify has green. I know some Spotify designers will literally stop at someone's portfolio because it had Spotify green in it. And they're like, oh, hold on a moment. Even though it's not like anything to do with Spotify, it's just that Spotify green. It's kind of hilarious. So just,
you got to connect the dots. Like no one's going to like you think, oh, well, I have this thing. This is an app. And oh, I have this and this is colorful and creative. They must be able to figure out I can do colorful, creative apps design. No, you got to like spell it out. So if there's a specific company you're trying to get into, make a fake project that looks like their branding, or maybe it's just you do your own brief where you make something for them. They're not going to connect together what you can or can't do. You got to just show them. You got to connect the dots for them. Yeah.
Okay, Maddie, keep going. You get to keep talking.
Alrighty. So the next question is, how long do projects normally take?
Well, I just want to jump down to what Audrey was
right.
about. How long does it take to update, or how frequently do you update? And it's honestly, once you got a job, if you're not needing to have an updated portfolio, you don't have to have one. But you want good content in it and you want to refresh it. I don't think you have to maniacally constantly update it all the time. But if you have something better and you can bump out that's something maybe not as good, that's always a good thing to do.
I actually disagree.
Update my portfolio, like I do a big rehaul, and then afterwards I'm just updating it little by little, like project, putting something in. And so I think it's just that like first initial push sort of thing. And then it's just light touches and light updating. But I only update it if there's something like a new project that will
is worthy of being in there.
I do. Can I say something? I do have to say, I want to kind of counteract Jason's point, because I think during COVID, especially the industry afterwards, will really contrast how we will meet and hire people in the field. So I actually think a lot of your personality will be, found through your portfolio and through your website, or however you choose to represent yourself. So I think it's always a constant update. You'll probably never be done with your portfolio, and that's totally okay. Like anyone in the field will always have work that they're grinding out, or always working on projects and just don't have time to update it. If you have a lot of connections, that's awesome. And then that's when you kind of don't really need to update your portfolio as often. But if you are starting off and you are a newer designer and you don't really have like the people around you to necessarily know where you want to go, it does not hurt to always have your portfolio constantly updated, share to however many people you want. And especially during like COVID, where you mostly meet people online, it's really no shame to just always just put your work on it and share it with people and get their thoughts and opinions on it. Cause this is that's the best thing we can do.
All right. Well, I don't want to take up any more of your time because we've gone 15 minutes over, but this has been very amazing. So thank you so much, Athena, Audrey, and Jason, for joining us tonight. You had some really great advice for everybody and great stories, and you got to show your project. So this was amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. And you're in LA, so it's the weird time zone. So thank you for putting up with Eastern time.
Yeah, no problem. A lot of fun. Thanks, Maddie.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I hope this helped. Yeah, anyone who wants to pursue design.
Yeah. All right. So for those of you attending tonight, if you're an honors student seeking to fulfill your intellectual cultural experience, make sure that you attended 3 of these panels and then email us at easternprssa@gmail.com. So I'll throw that in the chat real quick. and just indicate that you want honors, and we will get that all sorted out for you. So there's that right there. So make sure that this is not the last day of SDC. Tomorrow we have one last panel and then we're done. So make sure you join us tomorrow for the Digital Summer Clinic panel. It's featuring speakers from Google, Pinterest, AdAdapt, and the Center for Digital Engagement. So it's gonna be a really great time. But thank you again to the attendees for sticking around 15 minutes over. Sorry about that. And thank you to our panelists for also sticking around. You guys had some really great things to say. Thank you for answering all the questions and taking time out of your really extremely busy schedule. So I really, really appreciate it. Thank you guys.
No problem. No
Alrighty.
problem.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Have a great night.
Bye.
Bye.